So glad to be back home today. So glad to be with you. Well, we have a special treat for you today. In many churches, you'll hear an emphasis, once a year, and it'll be Mission Sunday or whatever, and we'll have a banquet or whatnot. And maybe that day will come. But today we broke our normal schedule in the middle of our series on the armor of God and spiritual warfare to have a Missions Sunday. So today is Missions Sunday. So I would like to invite our fresh off the field short-term missions group, Pastor Lori, Pastor McKenna, Elder Deacon Scott. I introduced him as one of our deacons so often in Zambia while we were there. Come on, Scott, if you would. So glad to have y'all. Come on up on the stage. We'd like to give our team members each about that too. We'd like to give each of our team members 9 to 10 minutes. That's not evangelistically speaking. That is 10 minutes each. And so maybe y'all caught that evangelistic speaking. But I just want to share with you, the Lord spoke to me as I was preparing for the trip, getting ready at my house. And the Lord said to me, what I'm going to do in your team is greater than what I'm going to do through your team on this trip. Lord, when the Lord speaks to me that way, in my heart, just a soft voice. I hear a gentle voice in my heart. When he said that to me, I knew. See, I know there's a spiritual principle. God's never as interested in what he's doing through you as what he's doing in you. And anytime you put yourself in a position for a demand to be placed on the gifts of God that are on the inside of you and make you uncomfortable, it will cause, in that element, it will cause a demand being placed on those gifts, and you will experience enlargement. That's what happened to our team on this trip. God did something special in our lives, and I'm so happy for it. Well, we've asked Pastor McKenna, because she's already has responsibilities going on, to come and share, if you would, Pastor McKenna.
Oh, it's so good to be home. I loved it there. It really did feel like home there. Just my heart was so connected, and to put all the faces to all the people that we've been so connected with for so long, it was amazing. But something about this building and my people, it just, sigh of relief, thank God. I love movement. So I made some notes on my phone because really it's the experience of just 2 weeks there was, I told Pastor Lori, it's like going to the moon and trying to tell somebody like what it smells like, and it's just unbelievable experience. So many encounters, so many miracles, so many just God moments of provision, and I could just talk forever. So I'm going to just stick to my notes. But obviously the highlight of my trip was all the children, all our Zambian babies. Like I said, I've been praying for them for so long and feel in my heart like they are an extension of Movement Kids. And that's exactly what they are. And so just to put just all the faces that are in my mind now of our other Movement Kids. It was incredible. I got to teach kids church on a Sunday while we were there, and that was the highlight, the honor of my whole life. That was incredible. I was blown away at how many kids they minister to every single week. I don't know what I was expecting, but I walked into this block structure. Do we have a picture of that? That's their kids building, and just finished. Yes, it's not quite finished yet. So it's just that right there is how it looks. Those are the rooms. In this room on the left, where Pastor Jerry in the striped shirt, he's walking into, in that one room, I taught to children ages 2 to middle school, over 100 kids. From 2 years old to middle schoolers, I was teaching 360, just nowhere to stand, nowhere to step, just it was incredible, such a high. And I taught about 2 things that are very universal there, the goodness of God and candy. So, I was telling them, American candy is so sweet. It's not like the candy here. It's just almost too sweet. It just makes your mouth water, and they're just drooling, yes. And so I'm like, it wouldn't be right for me to tell you about it and you not to experience it. So I give them all candy, and they're just on cloud nine. And and then I say, it's the same with God. Like, we don't just need to hear about God's goodness or read about God's goodness or what your parents say or what your pastors say. We're supposed to experience God's goodness. Taste and see that God is good. And so they're just smacking the candy and like Skittle colors are everywhere down their drool. And they're like, this is awesome, 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 awesome. So, like I said, their kids' church is not quite a finished building. It's a concrete structure with a roof, and they're very proud of it. And their leaders are so excellent, and they're just so thankful for everything that they have, and that attitude is in their children. But having over 100 kids aged 2 to middle school, like they're not outgrowing the building. They've outgrown it, and it's not even finished. And it's because there are churches nearby. There's a couple churches that are right near our church there. And there's like Seventh-day Adventists and Jehovah's Witness and a couple other churches. And the kids are leaving their parents at these churches to come to our church. And the parents are like, they're yours now. They belong to this church. We'll stay at this church. But the kids, they're just exploding with children. And I wanted to tell you about one of my favorite little ones that I encountered. His name is Chino. And he comes every week. He's one of those kids that comes from, his family goes to one church, but he is at our church in Zambia. And so he comes every week. And he has Down syndrome. And he's precious, and he wore a shirt that says, "Please don't abuse me." And it just wrecked me when I saw that. I think a lot of people don't understand people who are differently abled there. A lot of them, they just weren't sure what's going on with him. And, I know, it's Down syndrome, like, he's wonderful. I love him. But our pastors in Zambia, it really stuck out to me. They treasure him. He sat on the front row of little Pastor Ruth. She's a tiny little feisty woman. And he's like a middle school boy, and he's like sitting on her lap. And she's right on the front row just holding him, loving on him, like he's their kid. And I just fell in love with him. I said, I'm pretty sure that he proposed to me at one point. I don't know what he was saying, but he was just holding my hand. Oh, there he is. There he is. That's my baby. He was holding my hand and making this big grand gesture. And he was just pouring his heart out, looking at me. I don't know what he was saying. And I'm like, yes, yes. So I told Matt, I'm pretty sure there's another man in my life. We're engaged. His name's Chino, so... But while we were there, I noticed a couple boys in the village. They were calling him something that wasn't his name, and just kind of the way that they were saying it, I'm sure that it meant something bad. But so as we were playing games that day, we just spent the afternoon with them, running around playing games. And, everywhere that we would go, I would just hold his hand. And the kids there, holding hands is very intimate, and they loved that we would hold their hands because, not a lot of adults are very affectionate like we are here. And so they would literally fight each other off to hold mine and Lori's hand. Everywhere we went, they would just be pulling each other off and grabbing hands. And so I would say, no, I'm holding Chino's hand today. And so everywhere we went, I would just hold his hand. And I was just making the point that he's valuable. He's important to me, and he is to be treated this way with respect. And it was just such a moment to me that by the end of that day, after we had played games and spent and run and exhausted ourselves, the ringleader of the boys who was picking at him, he was fighting to hold Chino's hand. He was like, I'm holding his hand. If you're holding his hand, I'm holding his hand. And so, whenever you go somewhere with so much need, it's overwhelming. Like, you can't possibly meet all the needs, especially in such a short trip. And that helpless feeling was just in me, like, God, there's so much that I see that I can do. What small things can I do? In what small ways can I be Jesus? And so that was just one way. I can be Jesus to Chino. I can show these boys how Jesus treats people, and that can change their life, And I saw it firsthand that our church in Zambia is a safe place for all people. All people, they value people. And their kids' church leaders are excellent. Like, they blew my mind. I learned so much from them. And I even saw them through the week, like sitting under shade trees on our walk back from our guest house to the pastor's house to the church. They would be sitting under a shade tree just studying their lessons for that week and with the whole team. And they're like, they live and breathe to be Jesus to these children. And I wanted to tell you about one man in particular, their children's pastor. His name is Pastor Prince. And this man, he is a father to the fatherless there. And I said earlier, in a nation that a lot of men have walked out on responsibility. It's a very fatherless nation. A lot of men have walked out on responsibility. They've walked out on their families. This man has stepped up for all these kids. And this is not just like on Sunday I'll teach them. He's there all week long. Like, there's kids literally for the conference, they were staying in tents in the children's building, like, just to be there at the conference. Not with families, like some of our kids who are orphaned and vulnerable, they were staying there, and he is like the protector, the daddy of all of them. And so I just left with him in my heart. So please pray for him, because he is our hands and feet right there on the ground for our children. And he is just excellent. He is wonderful. And just pray for him and pray for these children, because every child in Kalabu needs to know the goodness of God. They need to know that God is personally concerned with every detail of their life. And the church that we have there is being that to them. They're showing that to them. They're like our hearts here, they have that same heart. God is good, only good, always good. And they need that. And they're going to need more space for all the children, because I think the village has just begun to know their name. And children are coming, and they're already exploding out of the building. So they need more space. So the real thing is, these aren't just children on the other side of the world. These are our movement kids now. These are our children. These are our leaders, our pastors over there. They are going to carry the name Movement and the heartbeat of movement and the message of God's goodness. And they need us. They need our help. And I want to have my hand in it. I want to have an influence in it. I want to help restore a nation. I want to help affect eternity with them, because they're already doing it, and we're being brought in on it by God. And it is a privilege and an honor to help them. So thank you for letting me share, and just pray for our babies in Zambia and our pastors and all their wonderful leaders. They're doing excellent work. Thank you all.
Isn't that good? Just to share a couple things. So the trip was kind of overwhelming, and so I'm just going to kind of keep it bottled up a little bit. Yeah, good luck. I don't want to cry on the internet. So just a few things. One is that just in general, the people don't have very much, but how excited they were in everything they did, how thankful. I told the story earlier. when we had church every day, a couple times a day, and 2 hours before the service, 2 hours, you could hear them over in the village. Oh, we were in a guest house. You could hear them worshiping. And then we would go to church, and we would have this very long, very, very long service. And they would still be worshiping just with everything, dancing, the whole thing. And then we would, all the people that were preaching and ministering, they would ask us to leave first. And then it would be 2 hours later, 9:30 at night, you could still hear them worshiping. And it's pretty overwhelming. So, I want to talk about a couple little things. One is bring up the picture of the well and the buckets. All right. So every morning I get up really early, 5 or 5:30, and at every place there's a well. It's not many. We saw, I think, one or two. The women come lots of time with kids, and one woman had all these buckets, and her kids stayed with the buckets while she carried the other bucket full to wherever she lived, and then she would come back, get another bucket, carry it. So she done this on this morning. She done it over and over again. But before she got there, there was another person there, and they were pumping water, and 80% of the water was falling on the ground. And so I'm watching it, and they were pumping it out of a spigot. I'm watching it, and the guy he's an older guy, he's probably my age, maybe younger. Yeah, he was younger. He that's not funny. He was watching them, and I was watching them spill all this water. Well, you see this hose right here? That was for irrigation, and there's a valve that switches it. And I literally walked out there and picked up the hose and showed it to the guy. And then he directed the women to come and fill it up with the hose. And, of course, they didn't spill any of it. And so the reason that sticks out is that how simple is that? And it's because someone showed me something in my life. And this guy didn't even know. But, of course, they got right onto it. So there's a lot of things like that. So while I was there, I got to preach a little bit. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yep. Pastor McKenna said, you had said before that you didn't really know who you were anymore, and then she was like, "That's who you are." That guy was preaching, and anyway, it was a message. The Lord had put a burden on my heart for the young men and young boys while I was there. I'm carrying that right now, just right here in my throat. So I preached a simple message about Jesus had come to heal the brokenhearted. And the Lord had let me see that of the gap there was with the young men and young boys. And he had shown me that there was a lot of abuse happening and to some of these people. And so sometimes when you're preaching to a translator, the Lozi language is kind of a simple language. And so I wasn't really sure how it was going to go over talking about how that abuse that can hurt us on the inside. And I didn't really know what kind of words to use. And I didn't use the words like sexual abuse, but I said hurt and some pains are hidden. And I basically told him that Jesus had come to heal that thing that nobody wanted to talk about. And so I wasn't really sure how it was going to come across, and I didn't want to get in trouble. But at the end, I called for ministry time, and as one by one, these mothers and grandmothers brought all these young boys to the front. And listen, I didn't say bring your young boys to the front, but that's what they did. And we began to pray for each one. And so in this area that we went to serve in and that we will continue to serve in, there's a gap. There's not an investment and the young men. Pastor McKenna said this is a fatherless nation, and it's true. Many of the men and boys just get into trouble. Everyone we saw serve and work while we were there were women and kids. And so it's our hope to help mentor and invest into these young boys and men. It's our hope to, they don't even know what investment in the future really looks like. And so while we were there, I got to talk to some of the elders that had knowledge about some things, and so we began to understand that they really didn't prepare. They weren't diversified, and so when their crops fell, they just fell. And when their water has malaria, they just drink it. Okay, and so we understood while we were there that they can grow mangoes, but they don't know how to sustain it. They don't know how to preserve it. They don't know how to dry it. They have cashew trees, but they don't know how to roast it and sell it or distribute it. They literally have such a small view of I'm going to eat. What am I going to eat today? How am I going to survive today? And we're really, I really have a vision for being able to help the village sustain itself. And I know that I'm just one person, but I really represent a lot of people. And so I think that the Lord is going to help equip us to meet the right people, to know how to sustain crops there, how to preserve them, how to sell them, cattle, how to diversify. And the Lord, even while we was there, when I learned that, that such thing as starting their own pond, it wasn't just a little while, and Pastor Rod and I ran into Peace Corps people that was their background. They knew how to start ponds, and they said they would send us. I mean, listen, what's the odds? And we're talking about lottery odds or worse, that we're in another country and we run into the people that has the information that we need. It was really a God moment. And so maybe in the coming months, as other teams go over there, we're going to be looking for opportunities. And this last thing I'm going to say is this: is that one of my dollars and one of your dollars is $13. And so I give every month to the Zambia, I don't say project, but it's really the work. And one of the greatest things that I saw is what $1 of our money looks like over there. And when I saw the food, the bag of Millie Meal, or the food, or the church, and I began to see what the cost of things was, I was like, that my dollar multiplied 13 times. And so I just want to try to help share this burden that your money, that our money going to the work there, it really is going so far, and it really is changing lives. And I'm feeling like that this is my burden to bear, and I know I'm not the only one. So look forward to seeing people get involved and taking part of this. God bless you.
I want to honor Rod before we do, Pastor Rod, before we do, I talk about anything. You guys, we have a good pastor. He's a really, really good pastor. He is the most humble leader. Even though he's wild and crazy, he's such a humble leader. And every moment on our trip, I know Scott and McKenna can say the same thing. It was not about him. It wasn't about even what Movement Church can do. It was literally like, how can we love like Jesus? How can we be like Jesus? How can we support these people like Jesus would? And there were so many times that they gave us praise, and they were so thankful for Movement Church. I mean, the words Movement Church came out of their mouths hundreds of times while we were there, just so grateful. But every time you could tell Rod is like, this, it's not about us, it's about you. And, I've grown up in ministry. I've known a lot of ministers. I've met a lot of pastors, and we have the best. He's literally the best. And anywhere you go, I will follow you forever and ever and ever, because you're awesome. Of course, my biggest takeaway was our precious, vulnerable and orphan children that we got to meet while we were there. This is just a few of them. They were actually pushing me and McKenna to the ground on this photo. They were pushing on us so hard, I thought we were going to get trampled. They're just so precious. So we went with the intention to buy the land for our first orphanage, our first group home. And so when we got there, Pastor Ruth kind of told us, there's around 20 kids, 24 kids. And as we were there a few days, the list grew to 42 children. So this is pretty much all the kids with us. So there was the day we got to meet all of them, and those are stickers all over their faces. So we gave them packs of stickers, and they loved it. It was the cutest thing I've ever seen. But so we found out that about 12 of them are orphaned, as in no mother, no father. And then the remainder of the 42 have mothers. Most of them have mothers or a grandmother or an aunt that's taking care of them. But the father has either died or he's abandoned their family. So you're looking at, a family of 6 children or 5 children, 4 children. The mother has no job. She has no way to provide for her kids. And she's literally looking to give up her rights as a mother because she can't afford to feed her babies. Think about that. Like in 2019, there are women that are having to make the decision, which child do I give up into orphan care because I don't have the money to feed my children. I don't have enough Nshima, which Pastor I will talk about. How big are the bags? 50-pound bags of Nshima are $12, and they don't have enough to buy that. We're so blessed. And when we're blessed with a lot, it's our job, it's our burden to do a lot with what we have. It's not us going home and being like, oh, I'm so thankful, and not doing anything with what I've seen. And our hope, our goal through this is that you will hear our hearts and know that we are the body of Christ. And Christ is not just in America. It's not just in Madison County. It's not just at Movement Church. It is global. Jesus died for those precious little faces and the mothers that are crying themselves to sleep because they can't afford to feed their babies. And they're having to decide, which one do I give up into orphan care? They went into this, their mindset was, all right, which child do I give to them to raise for me? That's what they were thinking. And we came out of this of, we're going to do sponsorship so that these families can stay together. That's our goal, is that these babies can stay with their mothers, and that these women feel empowered enough that they can raise their children, that they can, I look at single moms here and I have so much respect for you, but imagine living in a place where 2% employment is across the whole nation, and you have no way to make money, and you have babies to feed. So, what we will be doing, the first thing we're going to be doing is we're opening a nonprofit. And we will be, that is just for these precious babies that are for, and our goal is that this will expand beyond Kalabu, expand beyond Zambia, that this is going to become global, because there's people hurting all over the world, and it's our job to do something. We are so blessed, and we can't take our blessings with us to heaven. This is what we're going to take to heaven with us. These faces are what are going to greet us. Our cars, our nice houses, those are great. It's wonderful to have a roof over our head. I thank God that I have a toilet to use. Like that simple. After being in the bush, I'm like, God, thank you for a toilet. Thank you for a shower, that when I turn the water on, it really does come out. But our goal, our heart is that these children will have the basic needs that they need. So in the next few weeks, we'll be talking about Sponsor Sunday. Will be where you can spend $30 a month, and you will be able to provide the basic needs for these children, their food, their clothing, but also pay for their school. You have to pay for school there. So pay for their school needs.
Just want to say something real quick. The reason Lori's mentioning a nonprofit, a 501c3, just for this purpose is because many people, there are many people that want to give a lot of money, but they wouldn't give it to a church. Right. They don't, because why? Churches have lost their credibility in many business centers, and in a lot of different forums, a lot of different demographics. People won't give it to a church, but they're very successful. So if we started a 501c3, this is what's been on Lori and Seth's heart for quite a while, and let it be even if it comes across as a humanitarian effort. We know that there are so many different organizations that want to help people food, but this is not what we're not interested in just feeding someone. We're interested in teaching them. We're interested in giving them. We're interested in letting them have the gospel so they can meet the one who made the food. Amen. So just wanted to share that part about it.
So, thank you, Pastor Rod. So we went to the land. Do you have a picture of the land? Yeah, so this is part of the land. It's how many acres, Pastor Rod? It's 8 acres of land. It's huge. It's close enough to the town that the kids could walk there. You know, they could get there. But it's far enough away that it's very safe. It's very secluded. They're not near other people's houses. So, you know, this is us praying on the land. The gentleman with the short sleeve blue shirt is the Induna. The Induna is basically who the town was founded after. So his name is Kalabu, is his last name. And he's the one that sold the land to us. So we're forever grateful for him. This is us the day that we did the deal. But as we were walking on the land, we were trying to come up with a name, and I didn't even share it in first service. But the name is Munzewa Sepo. Munzewa Sepo. It means Hope's village, Hope's home. So the whole plot of land, they even wrote it on the deed, that it's Munzewa Sepo. It's Hope's home, Hope's village. And our hope is that children will find hope there. That this generation of kids that we are partnering with for $30 a month, literally $1 a day, that we are partnering with, that will hear not only get the food that they need, the basic needs of clean water and food and clothing, but they'll hear about a God that loves them and that there is hope. There is hope for the future. They are the change. We are not the change. We can help partner with them to make change, but this nation has to have a change. They have to see hope. And, you know, I feel like we're doing a really good job there of bringing hope through our pastors. Our pastors are, just like Pastor McKenna said, they're amazing. They're amazing leaders, wonderful leaders. Knowledge that it's literally like when you hear the stories about people out, you know, miles and miles and miles from big churches or any kind of ministry work, and they just know God imparted wisdom to them. That's what our pastors have. They have wisdom that only God himself could tell them. Like outside of being taught in a university or whatever, and they've never gone to university. They just know. They're very wise people. But you'll be hearing a lot about this over the next little while. Our goal is to have not only a home on this land, but we'll have an agricultural center to teach them how to farm. We'll have a center that's a school that has really good education. There are good schools in Zambia. Some of the schools basically just teach you your basic needs just to get through life. But we want these kids to excel. We want them to do something that's going to change the world. And do you have a picture of the one I sent of me? And this is my precious boy. So, you know, everybody, McKenna talked about hers. This is mine. This is Dennis. He is one of our sponsor kids. He is carrying the burden of his daddy being gone. His dad passed away. He is helping his mother. He's 14. He's helping his mother do everything. He doesn't have a childhood. This boy works from sun up to sundown, doing everything that the daddy should do. So everything that Scott said, I echo 100 times. Just be praying. You know, you don't understand just what your prayers can do. Just your prayers of God. Let us find ways to impart wisdom. This boy could change the nation. And I believe with all my heart that my goal until the day he's not a sponsor kid anymore is to see him do something big for his nation. But you guys, we need you. We can't do this without you. There's no way that we can build this without you. There's no way that and like I said, we are so blessed. This stuff that we have will not be in heaven with us. The faces that you see on this screen are what are going to greet you in heaven. My crown, I don't want my crown half done. I want my crown full of jewels because of everything that I gave. I can't take my riches to heaven with me. I can't take my house to heaven with me. But you know what? I know that one day I'm going to stand and Jesus and all these beautiful faces from all over the world are going to greet me. And that's what I hope your prayer is too for your family, is that should be our end goal. It's a global church. And our church, I'm telling you, our church there is proud of Movement Church. I have never in my life felt so honored and so loved by people who had no idea who we are, who love you. I mean, the heaviness of our ribbon cutting ceremony and how much they love Movement Churches bringing hope. Person after person, we get in the stage. Movement Churches bringing hope. Movement cares about more for us than the president does. You're bringing hope for this town. You're bringing hope for the Western Province. You're bringing change to Zambia. You're doing that. Your dollars are doing that. Your prayers are doing that. And we're so thankful. We're thankful for your prayers. I love you guys.
Wow. Thank you, Lori. The town councilman announced that what Movement Church is doing in the Western Province is the greatest thing since the independence of Zambia. So imagine how big that feels to them, So anyway, I want to share with you a couple of pictures as well. Let's see. Let's start with. Do you still have that woman carrying a big stack of wood on her head? This is the women work so hard there, and yes. I took this picture. Now watch. Pastor Jerry and Ruth, when I met them back in 2010. Now, if you could flip to that little church with me in the red shirt. It should be there somewhere. This is me preaching back in 2010 in their church then. And this is a mud and stick church. It does have a metal roof. But as a matter of fact, the Monday, we left town Tuesday. The Monday we were there, they dismantled this building, took the metal off the top, and took it to 2 other of their villages that had no place to meet and are using it to construct 2 other structures. So y'all, they don't waste anything. So this is me preaching in 2010 here, and this is when we began to have a relationship. Now, if you would switch to Jerry and Ruth, got a little picture of them, of a little square of them. There we go. These are the diamonds right here. Y'all, these are it. You don't know how long it would take in a third world country to find a couple who are not typical. This couple will only preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, the goodness of God, God's love and his mercy and his grace, and they will not use manipulation or religion or legalism to beat people down like everyone does in a third world country. They automatically feel subservient in a religious setting over there because religious leaders, their own national leaders, beat them down. They use the Bible to beat them down, to make them serve and do what they're supposed to do. It happens in America the same way, just a little different. We use more educated words. It happens the same in America. That's why Jesus came to save the Pharisees, Sadducees, the religious culture of that day were beating people down to make them obey and be servants. And so this couple are their diamonds, y'all. That they would preach the love and the goodness of God. Why? Because 20 years ago, when a crusade came through town, a gospel crusade, he was the town drunk. He was fighting. I know the guy that was preaching. Pastor Jerry was the town drunk. He was fighting the guy. Wanted to fight everybody for any reason. He drank and smoked pot all the time. And at that crusade, he gave his life to Christ. And God called him to the ministry. And he's pastor over 8 churches now. And he walks up to 7 miles to get to one of the churches in all the different sub-communities like Kalinga, Mushua, Ufufu, places like that. And so little towns, little villages that you would never hear about. As a matter of fact, in the large city of Lusaka, they would never even go there. They don't have a reason to. There's nothing happening, in their opinion, out that way. So God helped us to have a relationship with them. And we begin to, and so in 2015, when I was able to leave construction and start working full-time for Movement Church, and Movement was able to take me on. We started that month sending them $100 a month. Now, the church that they pastor is called Word of Life. It's an organization out of Lusaka. They require them to send 92% of their money that they take in the church to the organization. They're expected to operate on 8%. Now, this is what I'm talking about when I say they use oppression to control people. And so because of this, they've only felt the strength in the last few years. Let's step out of this and start our own charter. Let's start our own 501c3. So that's what we're encouraging them to do. We're providing them with the legal paperwork. I have a close friend. You may remember him here last year, Nate Tanner. He'll be here also this November. They just started a church and an orphanage. It's registered with the government. We're gonna use their paperwork as some guidelines. Get this to Pastor Jerry and Ruth so they can file with the government, have their own organization. And because of us beginning to invest in them in 2015, beginning of 2015, they were, by the way, the church paid them $17 a year to pastor. Listen, I don't even know what that means other than you're in poverty. And so 4 days a week, he took his wife and kids out in the woods to cut firewood. And they would carry heavy loads. You saw that picture of that woman, Pastor Ruth here, would carry a heavy load and carry it to these earth mounds and put it in the mound, start fires, and make it into charcoal. And they would sell charcoal to people because that's how people cook. And she says she remembers in 2015 in January, she said, God, how am I going to do this any longer? I didn't even know this story until I was there this last time. And Lori said that Pastor Ruth told them this story. He says, how can we do this? How can we even have strength to pastor anymore? Because we have to, 4 days a week, we have to cut wood to come in and bring it to sell in town and make charcoal so that we can just pay for our food. We can provide food for our home. And she said that about that time, I had contacted Pastor Jerry and said, we're going to send you $100 this month. So we sent him $100. It cost $20 to go across the floodplain, Zambezi floodplain, and come back to get the money. And she said they was so excited. It was like Christmas. She says, wow, we're going to have Millie Meal, or what we know as grits. That's their staple. Imagine that. So that we're going to have Millie Meal to eat, and our kids are going to be happy. And we'll even get to have chicken maybe once a week. And imagine their surprise when the next month, $100 came. And they said, we've never known anybody to care about us like this. Now we can have the strength to pastor people, to go pray for people, to teach our elders and our deacons, and our church can grow. So we began to do this back in 2015, and we haven't stopped since, sending them money each month. And this money, now I've given them strict instructions not to spend this money on other things. This is just for their family. But they've been disobedient. I think they're using some of their personal money for ministry. Imagine that. So no, they are really. And we've sent quite a bit since then through donors of the church for construction, through a family in the church. We were going to purchase a motorcycle, and so I found out on this trip that the pastor is a little afraid of a motorcycle, and so he wants a four-wheeler. He said he needs a four-wheeler because he may not be alive to preach anymore, because he doesn't know how to drive in the thick sand, and that's another whole story. We got a motorcycle. We thought it was the one, and they sold him a dud. It was brand new, but they worked a deal. They tried to work a deal on him. I probably shouldn't tell. I'm going to tell it anyway. They're there. He's giving it back to him. He said, I want my money back. That's unheard of there. They don't give money back. The money's already spent for something else. Lori looks at me and says, Pastor Rod, if you give me your pocket knife, I'll shank him. She goes, if you give me the word, I'll go in there, I'll put this weird makeup on, and I will go voodoo on them. She goes, I'll do something. But basically, these men were taking the pastors there they were taking them for over a year's worth of income in this motorbike. And they sold it to him, and it wouldn't even run. He asked me to train him on the bike. I hadn't even gone 100 yards, and the clutch plate had already disengaged from the inside of the motor. The motorcycle wouldn't go anywhere. And your pastor did something probably he shouldn't have done. But I'm going to confess right here in front of y'all. I asked his wife to come over there and interpret for me. And these two young men, one of them from Angola. You ever looked in somebody's eyes and know that they weren't? You could just, Lori says they're the devil. But anyway, I just looked in their eyes, and I could not feel integrity and honesty. I couldn't see that in them. And so I got the pastor's wife over there, and I said, I need you to interpret for me. You tell them that this motorcycle is not being used for fun and to ride in the sand. That this is a pastor who only desires to preach the gospel. And this money was sent for this motorcycle so that this bike could be purchased, so the gospel could be taken to the far reaches of this area, and that people would know about the love of God. So this money was not given by some businessman. It was given by a church who preaches the gospel of Jesus Christ, and it was given to a man who preaches the gospel. So if you take this money and you're cheating this pastor of this motorcycle, and you're giving him money, and this motorcycle is broke, then you're not cheating him, you're cheating the gospel, and you're cheating God, and something bad will happen to you. Well, when I said something bad will happen to you, their eyes got real big. I know I probably shouldn't have went heavy on them, but y'all, I saw, listen, when you see 11,000 kwacha, that's a lot of money to them. That's a lot of money to us, period. When you see that going away and they're going to do nothing about it, and you realize you need to do something. And of course, Scott, he's our left now, but Scott is over there walking on the outskirts of the property, praying in the Spirit. I can hear him praying in tongues. Lori's asking, can she shake him? So I knew we got to do something. So those guys says, we'll be back in a minute. They came back, brought the 11,000 kwacha cash and counted it out to him and gave it back. So I just had to tell you that little thing. So while we were there, this is the church building that we dedicated. You can see the building that we dedicated. Most of you already know it. Scroll through there. There should be another one there. The little bit, there we go. That's a little better picture of that. It's a beautiful structure. Yeah, there we go again. Did y'all see the picture of me holding hands with another lady there in front of the building? I don't know if we still have that, but that is there she is. There she is, the district commissioner, and this is a historic moment for them, you guys. I didn't understand, even when we were building this property, I didn't understand the value of what a concrete block structure means to them. It legitimizes whatever you are doing to be in the community. It looks solid. It looks stable. So, y'all, it was a great day. I can't even begin to tell you how great that was. But anyway, moving right along to finish up. The children's building is already too small. Y'all, we're going to have to build a new. Actually, we want their church to be a children's building, and we want to build them a new auditorium. And when you realize auditoriums over there are $15,000 from start to finish. By the way, that children's building that McKenna showed you, and this church, all of the labor. I asked Pastor Jerry, give me a price on what the labor costs for this building and the children's building. It was $8,500 for all of the labor for both buildings. So as you can see, labor's inexpensive there, and it would be silly to take a team that costs us thousands of dollars in plane tickets when you can pay for labor and they know how to build there. Yeah, and help their economy. So I wanted to share that with you. We want to put a well at the church that's going to cost around $1,800. We want to put a freshwater well that you pump with your hand, because sadly, if you put an electric pump out there, somebody will come in the night and steal the pump, steal the actual parts of the pump and steal it and take it away. It's just, y'all, it's a mindset of we've got to have what we need right now. They don't think for the future. So we're going to put a hand pump out there at the church. There's a lot of things we want to do, a lot of things we want to grow. But there's one need I want to present to you today before we close. And I wasn't aware of this. And see, that's another thing with this pastor that we have there. He won't tell me unless I ask what they need. This is unlike any third world pastor I've ever met in my life. In most cases, if you've done any kind of mission work in foreign countries, many times they look at you as made of money and they ask you for things constantly. This pastor doesn't ask me for anything, and I have to ask him, how can we help? I found out on this trip that they had severe drought this past year. This is why the orphans have doubled in the amount, and parents, their town is in an emergency situation. People just don't have food. Their rice crop, which is, they take the Zambezi floodplains, they plant rice. Matter of fact, China leased 100,000 acres from them for rice. But this past year, the rice crop was devastated. They had no rain. They had drought. The corn crop, where they get their grits from, it's gone. And so they do have it, but they've had to bring it up from the northern province. So they can go and they can pick up a 50-pound bag of mealie meal, or what we know as grits. When it's cooked, it's called shima. We can get 50-pound bags for $12 a piece. We would like to buy 75 bags to help not only the church family, but the town of Kalabu. He said, that's not much. Well, I mean, a 50-pound bag will last them for a few weeks, depending on the size of the family. And we're not trying to feed everybody for a long period of time. We just may do it now, and maybe in a couple months we might do it one more time to help them get over the hump, because they're hurting, they're hungry, they're doing things they wouldn't normally do to try to just feed their family. So if the Lord would speak to you today in your heart to give an extra $12 as a family, Or maybe you can give more than that. I know in the first service we raised a good amount of money for this. We didn't raise all the 900, but you'll see on the drop down in your giving for our website, it actually says Kalabu Drought Relief. Churches don't do that there. Matter of fact, they're really surprised when I told Pastor Jerry and Pastor Ruth, is there a way we can do this to help your people here in Kalabu? Not just church people. See, and that's the thing there. When you go to help somebody, if you're not connected to a certain group, they won't help you. When they think of a church helping everyone and bringing a 50-pound bag of Millie Meal to a town or to a house and saying, hey, we just want to help you. We know you're hungry. It's a big deal. So if you could see it in your heart, if the Lord would speak to you this way to help with the drought relief program, we want to send that to them this week. And then Pastor Jerry will hire a vehicle, $15 to $20 it will cost. They'll drive to Mongu. They'll buy it there, bring it back, and put it in the church. And the church will act as a distribution center to help people who are hungry. So would you bow your heads with me today? I just want to close in prayer. Father, thank you for this opportunity to reach out to people who need help. Father, thank you that right here in North Alabama, we can affect, within days, we can affect a small, struggling town, struggling with drought, struggling with hunger. And we can be your hands and your feet. And we can feed them. We can literally feed them with money that we have in our pocket right now. And Father, this goes further than Movement Church. This goes further than a name. It goes further than somebody getting credit. Father, this is somebody who's been touched by the love of God, who wants to help somebody else who's hungry. So Father, I ask you today that you would put your hand upon our heart and touch us. Lord, you said that he that reaches out his hand to the hungry is helping God. So God, I ask you today that we would be your hands and your feet to help those that are hungry in the western province of Zambia and Kalabu. And Father, I thank you today that your hand of mercy is on our life, and you've helped us be able to help someone else. Even it's through a natural need. So also, if you're here today and you say, hey, Pastor Rod, I'm here and I've never invited Christ to be Lord of my life, and maybe this is an unusual service today, and maybe it's been different than one you've been accustomed to. But I want to share with you today, most of you know this, but before the foundation of the world, God made a plan. And he decided to take the most valuable thing in all of his treasure, which was the life of his son Jesus, and give him up to be crucified, to come down here on this earth and be born of a virgin and live a life and help people who needed help, but to die a criminal's death and rise from the grave on the third day so that you could have everlasting life. And all it would take is you believing in what he did, so that you could experience this kind of life. If you're here today and you'd like to say this prayer with us as we close, I want to invite you to make Jesus, let this be the day you make Christ the Lord of your life. And I want to ask our family here, would you pray this prayer with us together? If you'd like to pray that prayer, church family, let's pray together. Everybody say, Father, thank you for sending Jesus. Thank you, Jesus, for dying on the cross for me and rising again. I repent of my sin. Jesus, you are my Lord.